Today I will tell you the story of my subscriber from the shopping center. Listen. I don't know why I went to the mall that late. Maybe I just needed to clear my head, escape my apartment, walk under fluorescent lights instead of my dim, flickering lamp. It was one of those nights where everything felt off. I couldn't focus, couldn't sleep. So, I grabbed my jacket and drove to the Westfield shopping center, a place that should have been closed by then. But the doors were open. That was the first weird thing. I remember checking my phone before stepping inside. 10:47 p.m. The mall closed at 10 o'clock. But the automatic doors slid open as if welcoming me, and I figured maybe the cleaning crew or late shift employees had left them unlocked by mistake. I stepped inside. Everything was still. Too still. No hum of distant chatter, no rolling carts, no late-night employees stocking shelves. Just the sound of my own footsteps against the polished tile. The stores were dark, their gates pulled down, their mannequins standing motionless behind glass. The food court sat in eerie silence, tables neatly arranged, chairs tucked in like no one had ever disturbed them. Yet the lights were still on. The music still played over the speakers, soft, barely noticeable instrumentals of pop songs. A perfect illusion of normalcy. I should have left. But curiosity kept me moving deeper. I walked past the empty storefronts, my footsteps echoing louder than they should have. The ceiling speakers crackled now and then, as if the music struggled to stay alive. I turned a corner near a department store, and that's when I noticed it. A single escalator still running. The downward one was still. Frozen. But the upward escalator hummed softly, its steps rolling up toward the second floor. No reason for it to be on. No one was here. I hesitated. But something in me, a stupid, intrusive instinct, made me step on. As I rode to the second floor, I felt it. A shift in the air. Like the mall itself had been watching me the whole time. And now it knew I was here. Then, just as I reached the top, the music stopped. The second floor was worse. Downstairs had at least felt empty. Up here, something felt wrong. Like the air was heavier. The lights flickered, just barely noticeable, but enough to make the shadows shift in ways they shouldn't. The stores were all dark. Their display windows reflected the long stretch of the corridor back at me. At least, that's what I thought at first. Then I noticed something strange. In one of the reflections, near a clothing boutique, something moved. I turned around instantly. Nothing. The hall behind me was empty. Just endless storefronts, and the dead hush of the mall. But I knew what I had seen. A shape, a flicker of movement just beyond my own reflection. I took a step closer to the glass, my own face staring back at me in the dim light. I scanned the reflection carefully, my breathing loud in my ears. That's when I saw it again. Not behind me this time. Behind the glass. Inside the dark store, deep within the shadows between the racks of clothes, something shifted. The faintest outline of a figure, tall, thin, completely still. Watching. I staggered back, my pulse hammering in my throat. The store was locked. The metal gate was pulled down. There was no way someone could be inside. And yet I swore I could still see it, half blended into the darkness, standing among the lifeless mannequins. The air felt electric, like the moment before a storm hits. My gut screamed at me to leave, to turn around and run back down the escalator, but when I glanced back, I froze. The escalator was off. The once moving steps were still, locked in place as if they had never been running. I wasn't alone in this mall. And whatever else was here, didn't want me leaving. My breath hitched. I spun in a slow circle, scanning the corridor for any sign of movement. The mall stretched ahead, silent and endless, but the feeling of being watched had grown unbearable. I needed to get out. My phone. Why hadn't I thought of my phone? I yanked it from my pocket and tapped the screen. No service. No Wi-Fi, no bars, just a blank, dead signal where my connection should have been. I tried calling anyone, but the dial tone never came. Just silence. The reflection in the boutique's window caught my eye again. I didn't want to look. But I did. And this time, the figure wasn't behind the glass anymore. It was behind me. My stomach twisted. I turned around so fast, but again, nothing was there. The hallway was empty. But I wasn't imagining it. I could feel it. Something was close. I took a step back, then another, until I bumped against the railing overlooking the first floor. The escalators were frozen, the stores below looked even darker now, like the mall itself was swallowing them into some endless void. Then, the lights cut out. Everywhere. Total blackness. The only light came from the emergency exit signs, faint red glows casting distorted shadows against the walls. The music hadn't turned back on. There was no hum of machinery, no distant clatter of ventilation. Just silence. And then, footsteps. Not mine. Something was walking toward me. The footsteps were slow. Deliberate. A measured tap, 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 against the tile. I held my breath, ears straining. They weren't coming from in front of me. They were circling. My eyes darted toward the emergency exit sign at the far end of the hall. If I could just get to it. Then the mannequins moved. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. The clothing boutique. The same place where I'd first seen it. The mannequins in the display had shifted. I wasn't crazy. I knew how they had been posed before, stiff, arms at their sides, head straight. Now one had turned. It was facing me. And its hand? It had moved too. No longer at its side, but raised slightly, fingers barely curled, almost like it was about to reach out. I stumbled back, my skin crawling. The footsteps had stopped. Silence again. Then a voice. A low, whispery rasp from somewhere deep in the dark. "You don't belong here." I ran. I bolted toward the emergency exit, my sneakers slamming against the tile. The red glow of the sign was the only thing guiding me. My lungs burned, my pulse pounded in my skull. Almost there. 10 feet. 5. I slammed into the bar of the emergency door. And it didn't budge. I shoved it again, harder, my palms slick with sweat. Locked. Behind me, in the dark, I heard it. The mannequins moving. A rustle of plastic limbs. The faint creak of something bending. Then the footsteps started again, faster this time. Coming straight for me. I pounded on the emergency exit door, my fists slamming against the cold metal. "Help! Hey! Somebody!" Nothing. No sound, no movement beyond the red glow of the exit sign. And then, the air changed. That electric charge, the one that had been following me since the escalator, thickened. The hairs on my arms rose. The space behind me felt full, like something was standing just inches away. I turned. I shouldn't have. But I turned. And for the first time, I saw it. It wasn't a mannequin. Or maybe it used to be. It stood just outside the weak glow of the emergency light, taller than any human should be, thin, elongated, its joints too sharp, too angular. Its fingers, way too long, curled slightly, like it was considering reaching for me. But its face. God, its face. It was smooth, featureless, except for one thing, a wide, painted smile. A frozen, eerie grin stretching from where its ears should have been. And worst of all, it tilted its head. Like it was studying me. I took a shaking step backward. The thing didn't move at first. Just stood there, watching. Then, it took a step forward. And I swear to God, its joints cracked like old plastic bending in the heat. I ran. Again. Back the way I came, past the dark storefronts, past the frozen escalators. I didn't care where I was going, just away. But then, a sound stopped me dead in my tracks. Not footsteps. Not the creak of mannequins shifting in the dark. No. It was the escalator. It was running again. Only this time. It was going down. By itself. And at the bottom, waiting for me in the dim glow of the first floor? A row of figures. Tall. Motionless. And smiling. I skidded to a stop, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. There they were. Dozens of them. Standing at the bottom of the escalator, lined up in the dark like some twisted welcoming party. All tall. All grinning. They didn't move. Not yet. Just stood perfectly still, their smooth, mannequin-like faces frozen in identical painted smiles. The escalator kept running, its mechanical hum filling the silence. The downward pull felt almost inviting. Like the mall itself was ushering me forward, toward whatever waited below. No. Not happening. I backed away, scanning the dark for another way out. The emergency exit was useless. The escalator was a trap. Then I saw it. An old maintenance door tucked near the side of the department store. It was slightly ajar, just enough to show a sliver of darkness beyond. I didn't think. I just ran for it. Behind me, I heard the first noise from the figures below. Not words. Not footsteps. Just a slow, creaking sound. Like plastic bending. Like heads turning all at once. I lunged for the maintenance door, shoved it open, and stumbled inside. The second I was through, I grabbed the handle and pulled it shut behind me. Darkness. Total, suffocating darkness. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped it. The screen lit up, casting a weak glow over the space. A narrow hallway. Pipes along the ceiling. A damp, musty smell. And at the far end, a stairwell. I didn't know where it led. But I knew one thing for certain. Something was on the other side of that door. Because as soon as I stepped away, it started knocking. Slow. Rhythmic. Like it knew I was still standing there. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stifle my breathing. My chest ached from holding it in. Then, the handle jiggled. Once. Twice. It was testing the door. I backed away, moving toward the stairs as quietly as I could. My phone's dim glow barely reached the walls, but I could see just enough: rusted pipes, old electrical panels, peeling paint. Another knock. Harder this time. Then, a sound that turned my blood to ice. A voice. Low. Distorted. Like a recording played at the wrong speed. "We see you." I turned and bolted down the stairwell. The steps spiraled downward, tight and claustrophobic. My shoes clattered against the metal, the sound bouncing in the confined space. I didn't know where this led, maybe a basement, maybe a service tunnel, but it had to be better than whatever was at that door. Then, another noise. Not from above. From below. I stopped mid-step, my breath catching. Footsteps. Coming up the stairs. I lifted my phone, trying to see into the dark, but the light barely stretched beyond a few steps ahead. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might give me away. The footsteps slowed. Then they stopped. Just out of sight. I wasn't alone in this stairwell. I couldn't go up. I couldn't go down. And then, the lights in the stairwell flickered on. A single, buzzing fluorescent bulb flicked to life above me. And for the first time, I saw what was waiting on the stairs below. The flickering light barely illuminated it. But it was enough. At first, I thought it was just another mannequin. Another one of those tall, grinning things waiting in the dark. But then, it moved. Not smoothly. Not like a person. Jerkily. Its limbs twitched in unnatural, mechanical motions, like it had been frozen for too long and was just now remembering how to walk. And its head. God. Its head was tilted so far to the side it looked broken. Then, it did the worst thing yet. It started climbing. Fast. 1 second it was standing 6 steps below me. The next, its arms lurched forward, its legs bending wrong, moving like a puppet with tangled strings. I didn't think. I turned and sprinted back up the stairs. I didn't care if the thing at the top was still there. I didn't care if the knocking had stopped. I just knew one thing. I couldn't let it catch me. The stairwell was too tight, too small. I could feel it just behind me, could hear the awful, plastic snap of its joints, the quick, erratic taps of its feet against the metal steps. Almost there. The door. I reached it, shoved at the handle, And it opened. It wasn't locked anymore. It had never been locked. The second I stumbled through, I slammed it shut behind me and ran. But as I did, I heard something laughing behind that door. A warped, broken, gasping sound. Like the mannequin had let me go on purpose. The laughter stayed with me. Even after I sprinted away from the stairwell, even after I ducked into the shadows of the abandoned stores, I swore I could still hear it. Low, wheezing, mocking. I had escaped. But I wasn't safe. The mall was different now. The layout had changed. I should have been near the escalators. Near the food court. Near something that would lead me back to the entrance. But the halls stretched too far in every direction. Storefronts I didn't recognize lined the corridors. Stores that shouldn't have been there. Their names were wrong, too. No logos. Just black, blocky letters above each entrance. Clothing. Shoes. Food. Toys. And inside? Nothing but mannequins. Not just a few. Hundreds. Crammed together, faceless, motionless. Some standing, some slumped over like they'd been dropped. Some were missing limbs. Some had too many. And then I saw it. At the very end of the hall. The information desk. The one place in the mall that had a directory. A map. Something that could tell me where the real exit was. I ran toward it. But as I did, I noticed something that made my stomach turn to ice. Some of the mannequins were facing me now. I ran. I didn't care how loud my footsteps were. I didn't care if they heard me. The information desk was right there. I skidded to a stop in front of it, my hands gripping the edges of the counter as I scanned the mall directory mounted on the wall. But the map was wrong. Or worse, it changed as I looked at it. The words shifted, rearranging themselves like ink bleeding on paper. Stores appeared, then vanished. The hallways twisted in ways they shouldn't. And the exit? It was gone. I let out a shuddering breath. Behind me, the silence grew heavier. Slowly, so slowly, I turned my head. The mannequins were closer now. Their rigid, plastic forms were inches away, circling the desk, filling the entire corridor. I hadn't heard them move. But they had. And in the center of them, standing taller than the rest, was it. The first one I had seen. The one with the painted smile. It stood completely still. Watching me. Then, it raised a hand. And it pointed. Not at me. At the directory. I swallowed hard and forced myself to look down. The map had changed one last time. One word. A single location that hadn't been there before. Last exit. My heart lurched. I didn't think. I ran.